YouTube, man? How you guys doing today? It is me again, your favorite Texas trucker, and welcome to Trucking on the Go. Right? It's our new page. It's where we'll be doing all of our content at, and we definitely hope that y'all will share it around. We are sitting here at Pilot Point High School in Pilot Point, Texas, where we're going to be delivering this morning. I got me and the kid out here. For the next couple of days, and then I'll be taking him home. Going down to Houston next, and then from Houston, we don't know where we're going to go. Probably back to Dallas, Fort Worth, and deliver on Friday. Thursday is Thanksgiving, and so we want to take the time to be thankful for all the people that have supported us over the last few years, and for those of you that came into my last YouTube channel and subscribed. I really appreciate the support. And but it was we made the decision to step away from that channel and to start all over again. All right, so don't be expecting any more content there. All of our content from now on will be here. We want to talk about the trucking life, the trucking industry, in all of its various different aspects, and to answer questions that drivers have, to do interviews, to get a perspective from drivers, to kind of get their viewpoints on the different aspects of the industry, things that are going on. So be looking for stuff like that. Meanwhile, I was asked a question yesterday and asked if I would address it. So, provided that we have the time, because I will have to stop this video whenever the loaders actually get here and get ready to work. But provided that we have the time, I want to address the question. The question was, how do you overcome obstacles out here, fears? Okay, when the person asked me that, they clarified that they have a severe problem with overcoming certain fears out here as a driver. Okay, they're a relatively new driver. They've got maybe 6-7 months worth of experience, and they're having a real difficult time with things like backing up, being afraid to hit vehicles or objects near them, being afraid to just do the job, come back up. Driving on ice, driving on snow, different things like that are causing a little bit of anxiety with the drivers. Okay, and so they asked me to address it in the video. How can drivers overcome those obstacles? And it's a good question, because there are a lot of drivers that are afraid to deal with issues. Back when I was training at Millis, I didn't train at Millis for very long, but back when I was training at Millis, I had a student, and he was dealing with some of that, being afraid, driving in cities, stuff like that. He was always afraid he was going to stall the vehicle out, always afraid that he was going to hit something around him, always afraid that there was going to be a problem, okay, that he couldn't deal with. And a part of that was because he had a trainer prior to me taking over his training who kind of brutalized him and made him really second guess everything that he did, and just tore him down as a person. And so I remember one time in particular where we were delivering in Chicago, inside Chicago, and it was during rush hour traffic. And this guy was just terrified to drive through that city, and terrified to drive through any city. I mean, even small towns created a big, almost panic attack for him. And I kept having to talk him through shifting, because I mean, he could drive fine in any situation. He did fine operating the truck. But you get him into those cities, into those situations that he was afraid of, and it was like he forgot everything, and he couldn't shift. He couldn't grind. He was grinding gears. He was so worried about everything around him that he didn't pay attention to anything. And so I would have to walk him through every time, from a stoplight, every time, walk him through upshifting, downshifting, and get him make sure he followed the steps, make sure that he paid attention, make sure that he watched his mirrors, and everything. And in some cases, I think that it may have made it worse. And this time, when we went through Chicago, as he was getting off of the interstate, I started a conversation with him, right? Instead of walking him through, I started a conversation with him, and I just began talking to him. And I kept his attention on what I was talking about and what I was saying. And as he entered into the conversation and became part of the conversation and was interested in the conversation, he forgot that he was driving through a city. Okay, his attention was on what we were talking about and was on me, and then his body, I guess, is the hard way to describe it, or I guess the only way I can describe it is that he went into kind of a automatic mode, right? He just went through the motions. He knew how to shift, so he just started shifting. He knew how to downshift. He knew how to upshift. So he just started shifting. He knew he was supposed to watch his mirrors. So he was watching his mirrors. He was making his turns. He was taking care of what he was doing. He was paying attention to the cars around him, but we were involved in a conversation the entire time. In other words, I had him distracted from the problem. Okay, I had him distracted from the anxiety. I had him distracted from what he was afraid of. And so once he got distracted from what he was afraid of and quit thinking about it, he did what he was supposed to do perfectly. When we were done, and we had, I don't remember if we were making a delivery or if we were picking up a load. I don't recall which of the two it was. This was a few years ago. But when we were done, we got back out on the interstate, and we drove. I asked him, I said, "Do you understand what you just accomplished?" And he said, "What do you mean?" And I told him, I said, "Man, you just flawlessly, whatever, picked up or delivered. I don't remember now. But I said, you just flawlessly did this load in the middle of Chicago rush hour traffic and didn't make a single mistake." I told him, I said, "I've been telling you this whole time this is something that you can do. You just have to knuckle down and you have to do it." One of the things that I tell my kids all the time, and I haven't had to tell them as much lately as I used to have to tell them when they were younger, but I tell them all the time that the word can't has no place in our life. It has no place in our family. It has no place in business. Can't, I always tell them, never accomplished anything, right? So when you start thinking negatively and you start thinking that you can't accomplish anything, you are already defeating yourself. Instead of taking the opportunity to accomplish something, to taking the opportunity to find out where your limits actually are, to take the opportunity to push those limits further and become better, you automatically cut yourself short when you say "I can't," right? When you start thinking "I can't," then you take the thought "I can't" and you make it reality. Okay, can't never accomplished anything, and I don't accept can't as an answer. Can't is not a legitimate answer, and it's not an answer I'll accept. It's not it's not anything I'm willing to hear. I can't never accomplish shit. So the bottom line is to take these obstacles, and they're fears. You understand that they're fears, so you have to overcome them one way or another. You have to overcome them. There's only one way to overcome it. The only way to overcome it is to tackle it, to deal with it, to just do it. You know what I mean? A year after this, about a year after this experience I had with my student, who, by the way, is still a driver today and does very well. But this year after this interaction with my student, I had a friend of mine who was a brand new driver, and he sends me a message through messaging, and he tells me, he says, man, I'm out on my own. I have no experience driving during the winter. He said, I'm afraid to drive on ice and snow. And this was back when the first winter storms had hit of that year. And he sends me, he tells me, he says, man, they've dispatched me on a load going up to New York, and there's an ice storm up there in New York right now. He said, I'm going to refuse the load and not go up there. And he said, man, but I wanted to know what you thought about that. And so my answer to him was that if you're afraid to drive on snow and ice, then that's something that you need to deal with. That's something that you need to handle, because when you signed up to be a truck driver, when you took this job, that's what you signed up for. You signed up to drive in adverse conditions. Bottom line is that we get the job done. No matter what the situation is, we get the job done. If it's snow, if it's ice, if it's sleet, if it's rain, we get the job done. We do what we have to do to get the freight from point A to point B. Now, as an owner-operator, I have the option, especially as an independent, I have the option not to go into those type of areas. But as a company driver, you signed up for that. That's what you signed up for. You signed up to take the job, to go where it needed to go, when it needed to go there, in whatever conditions that it needed to go. And if you can safely move a truck, and you can safely move a truck through snow and ice, if you can safely move a truck, then it's your duty, it's your responsibility as a truck driver to move that truck, okay? That's what you signed up for. Just because there's adverse conditions doesn't give you the option to shut it down and to not drive in it. We drive in those conditions. That's what we do. That's why we're some of the most highly trained vehicle operators on the face of this earth, because that's what we do. We drive in that stuff. And so I told him, I said, man, at some point, somewhere, somehow, you're going to have to deal with it. That's a bridge you're going to have to cross. It's something that you're going to have to face. It's something that you're going to have to deal with. So you put it off this year, you got to deal with it next year. So you do put it off next year, then you got to deal with it the year after that. At some point, there's going to be a first, right? There has to be a first. There's always a first, right? There was the first time that you got behind the wheel of a car and you didn't drive perfectly. You know what I'm saying? There was the first time you got behind the wheel of a truck. There's the first time that you hooked up to a trailer. There's the first time that you carried a load. There's the first time that you drove in the rain. There's the first time that you're going to drive on ice. It's something that you're going to have to deal with at some point, somewhere down the road. So you get out there and you deal with it. You take your time and you run it slow. You don't be in a hurry. And then when you complete your load and you get where it was that you were supposed to go to, and you drop that load and you move on to the next one, you get back into sunny skies and nice weather again, then you will have realized, like the student that I was talking about, you will have realized that you accomplished something that you were afraid to accomplish. You accomplished something that you didn't think that you were going to be able to do, and the next time it'll be easier, and the next time it'll be easier again. The problem is that drivers are afraid to step out into areas that they have not experienced before, okay? And they're afraid to step out in areas they're not experienced with and to do the things that they are not accustomed to doing. The bottom line is that as a truck driver, that's your job. Your job is to get out there and do it. So you have to experience it at some time. So at some point, you have to experience it. And the first time is always going to be full of anxiety and full of fear and full of what ifs. What if this happens? What if this happens? And at some point, you have to deal with it. So my advice is now and always has been, when there's an issue that you're afraid of, when there's an issue that it comes up that becomes an obstacle to you, that's difficult to deal with, that you can't, you find it a hard time, reconciling, that the only way to handle it is to deal with it. So in this whole issue of backing, okay, it takes a little bit of practice. You know what I'm saying? There's no way to master backing except by backing. There's no way. You cannot master taking a truck and putting it between two other vehicles unless you take the truck and put it between two other vehicles. You just can't do it. And anytime that you take on that challenge. There's always a possibility that there's going to be an accident. Okay, so there's a lot of things that you can do, and some of us are restricted in some of those things. You know what I mean? Because like me, I only have one truck. I only have one trailer. Now, if I had 3 trucks and 3 trailers, it'd be a simple matter. I could set up 2 trucks side by side, right? With a gap in between them, and I could put somebody behind the wheel and tell them to back up in the middle of them, right? I have a blessing in the fact that Elite has allowed me to continue parking my truck in their yard, even though I no longer haul for them. So in that instance, if I was to train a driver, I could bring a driver down to the Elite yard, and we could find a place where they could back up, right, where they could practice their backing. But a lot of people can't do that. They have to do it at truck stops. So take the opportunity a few times a day to go to a truck stop that's not packed with parking, and find you a couple of lines, a couple of white lines back there where there's a parking spot and there's no vehicles, and just practice putting the truck in between those 2 lines. Don't worry about the people that are watching you. Don't worry about the people that may be videoing you. Don't worry about any of that stuff. Just go there and do it. All right. When you get to where you can do that relatively comfortably, then take a couple of days and find you a couple of spots where there's maybe one truck right next to a spot that you're trying to put it in, and start trying to put it in that spot. When you get comfortable with doing something like that, which may take you 13, 14, 15 tries, when you get comfortable with doing something like that, then find a truck that has 2 spots with a space in between them and start putting your truck in the middle of those. Eventually you'll get good at it, right? Eventually you will. But in order to get good at it, you have to practice. You have to do it. These are things that you have to tackle, because backing up is part of our job. You know what I mean? Backing up is what we do, and if you're not willing to get out there and back up, then you're never going to learn how to do it. So stop being afraid of learning new things. Stop being afraid of tackling new obstacles. Okay? Stop being afraid of increasing your skill set. People say these are obstacles. These are obstacles that I'm afraid to pass. Obstacles I'm afraid to overcome. Obstacles I'm afraid to take on and challenge without somebody being there to help me do it. To me, I don't see those things as obstacles. I see those things as opportunities to get smarter, opportunities to get better, right? Opportunities to increase my skill, right? Opportunities to deal with something I haven't dealt with before. That's what I see. I see opportunity. Where other people see fear and trepidation and anxiety, I see opportunity. Sometimes you get into these situations that you haven't dealt with before, and you just have to get out. You have to get out. You have to walk around. You have to look at the situation. You've got to walk it out. Picture where your truck needs to go and how your truck needs to move to get there, and then get in the truck and do it. And if that means you got to stop 15 times and get out and look, then you stop 15 times and get out and look. There have been many times where I've pulled into some place and the operator wants me, or somebody there wants me to put my truck in a particular location, and I get out there and I look at it and I'm like, I'm not sure I see how that's going to happen, right? There was one time where I was pulling into a business, and I always look at these businesses before I get there to see the size of the parking lot. So there was one time when I get there and I'm looking at the parking lot on Google Maps, and I'm like, there's no fucking way my truck's going in there. So I pull off the side of the road before I get there. I go inside and I check in, and then I ask him, I said, man, I've looked at this place on Google Maps, man, and I'm looking at it as I'm walking in, and there doesn't really look like any way I'm going to get in and out of here. What they tell me, they say, is that I've got to back in. Okay. Problem is that where the gate was right in the center of the building, so I had to back in and then do about a 45 degree. I had to jack it back about 45 degree angle around the corner of the building, and then jack it again the other way. In other words, kind of a extended serpentine back, right? And I had to back around this building. Now, there was enough room for me to do it. It wasn't going to be easy at all to do, but there was enough room for me to do it. And so I went through and had the guy show me where he wanted my truck to end up at, and I walked that whole thing out. And I walked it out. I spent a good 5-10 minutes looking at everything, seeing where everything was at, seeing what obstacles were going to be in my way, seeing what I was going to have to do it. Right, and spent a long time walking it out. We moved a couple of things that I thought might have been in my way, and then I went out and got in my truck. He came out and stopped traffic. Right, him and another guy came out and stopped traffic while I did it, and I put it right exactly where it needed to go. I backed in through the gate at an angle. Once the cab cleared the gate, I jacked it around so that I cleared the building with the trailer. Once the trailer was cleared with the building, I jacked it around the other direction. I had to do a couple pull-ups here and there to correct a couple of things, but I was able to serpentine that truck through the gate, around this corner of the building, and all the way back to the back where they wanted it at. Getting out then was easy. Had I done it the other way, had I pulled in the parking lot first, I don't think I'd ever got that truck out of there, ever. You know what I mean? It wouldn't have been possible. What I'm saying is that that's a situation I'd never been in before. When I first looked at it, I was like, there's no fucking way. There's no way my truck is going to make this. But my truck did. It made it. We got it through there. Because I didn't tell the guy, I can't do this. I didn't tell him this is not something I can do. I told him I'll get it done. It's going to take me a minute. Y'all just told, hey, I may need somebody to block traffic. But I'll get it in there. I'll get it where it needs to be. Now, that's the attitude that you have to have. You have to have that attitude in order to successfully do this job. Because there are times when what you look at seems impossible, right? But honestly, it's not. They do it every day. It may not be easy. It may not be something that you want to do, but they do it every day. So stop being afraid. Stop letting fear dictate your next move. Stop letting fear dictate what you can accomplish and what you can't accomplish. Stop saying I can't do something and get your ass out there and do it. Alright, this has been a message from your favorite Texas trucker, Stephen Aaron Neal, and Trucking on the Go. If you liked it, share it. If you got something from it, then let people know. And if you have not already subscribed to this new channel, please subscribe, tell people about it, and let's help us grow. All right, y'all take care. Don't do anything I wouldn't do, and peace out.